Hello chat, welcome to a video about HUD UI settings and tips to help you improve your HUD UI and settings and tips. Anyway, you've read the title of the video so you know what you're getting into, but let's actually go over the process of what we're going to be doing. So this is my current HUD UI. If we go to HUD Layout here, we can see it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to talk you through some settings to basically acquire this HUD UI. And obviously, if you want to make any adjustments and stuff like that, you of course can. But we're going to remake it in HUD Layout too. So, the first things that we're going to do is just drag some of this stuff out of the way. We don't need that. We're going to move the experience bar down. You can either get rid of this or keep it. I like to keep it because I still am leveling jobs. Then we can move our hotbars down because we don't want them really at the center, but we still want them kind of centered. So what I like to do is actually drag them to the bottom. And if you hold shift and then drag, you'll drag stuff by the grid, which is pretty helpful for keeping stuff aligned. So that's what we're going to do. We're also going to enable hotbar free because every job needs free hotbars. So make sure you do that. Something that I completely forgot to mention is that you can customize your hotbars. So if you click UI element settings, you can actually change how they look. So you can make them like this. And that's pretty cool for like customizing your hotbar in unique ways. Maybe you want to have your minimap in the middle of your hotbars and you want your hotbars to kind of look like this. Then this is definitely something you can do. Obviously not in the middle of your screen, but yeah, something like this is something that you could opt into doing if that's what you want to do. The next thing we're going to do is drag the parameter bar above the hotbar, and this basically makes it so I have all of my my hotbar and my resources all in the same place. I'm also going to drag the Arcana gauge. This is job gauges, by the way. This can be any job gauge. I'm going to put it here, but I'm going to go to UI element settings here, and I'm going to switch it to simple mode. You don't need to do this. I get shit for saying it's better, but personally, I prefer the less noisy job gauge, so that's why I always change my job gauges to simple. You're of course welcome to do whatever you want with that. I won't dictate what you do there. The next thing we'll do is we'll get our status info enhancements and debuffs, so we'll just put these all here, and we'll also get the random buffs here. These aren't too important. These are just like FC buffs and stuff like that, but it's nice to have them somewhere. Then I want to get my progress bar. My progress bar is my cast bar. So when I do a cast, you can see. Very nice. I also want to drag the enmity list because the enmity list in default is all the way over here. And if I was to cast, wow, that's like really far away. How am I going to actually see that? So we're going to drag this kind of over here. Not to like be aligned with a hotbar, but also not to be in the chat box. So kind of like that. And when we get a lot of enemies, it will fill that up like a lot, as you can see. But I kind of sidetracked. What I want to do is drag these hotbars away. We don't need them. You can use these for whatever, but we don't need them. And then we're going to use the target bar here. This is when we target anything. So if we were to target an enemy, you see the target bar is up here. So I want to ideally change that. I like to have my target bar all the way here. So it's basically all of my information is in the same place. My hotbar is here, my resources are here, my buffs and debuffs are here, my cast bar is here, and the boss or enemy, whatever enemy I'm targeting, is here as well. And there's a nifty little thing you can do here. So if I was to click save and target myself, you can see that the cast of me is here and all my buffs and stuff are here. But we can also separate these elements and kind of make them bigger and stuff like that if we want to. And that reminds me how to make stuff bigger, but we'll go over that in just a moment. So I'm going to click this setting here, display target info independently. How I did that is I just clicked on UI element settings here. Again, for everything, you click that. And then this is the target's HP bar. So we could move the target's HP here. We could then get the target info's cast bar, and we could press Control Home and then resize that to 200%. It's going to make that bar really big. Then we could get the target info status, and we could just put it here if we want. And now, when we target ourselves, we'll see this will be all the bosses, buffs, debuffs, dots, all that kind of stuff. And if I was to cast, that's a big ass cast bar. You're not going to miss that cast bar. So that's pretty nice. That's something you can do. Personally, I don't do that because I don't really think I need it with all my information here anyway. but it is something you can do if that's something you want to do. Resizing UI elements can also be really handy for buffs and debuffs and all kinds of stuff that you might struggle to see. So if you want to make your buffs and debuffs even bigger so you can see them a bit better, this is an option. Another thing that I recommend clicking when you're customizing your UI is clicking this duty button. This will enable stuff like the duty gauge, which will be like boss enrages, and by the time the duty gauge gets to 100, the boss will enrage. So it kind of allows you to keep track of that so you can counter it. And the duty action here, which shows you where your duty action is going to be. This is more of a Stormblood mechanic, and it hasn't really been used that much since, but it's still worth having this somewhere, and also setting a keybind for it in the keybind settings here, and going to hotbar and then going all the way down, and then you have duty action here. Another important thing in my opinion is dragging the party list somewhere a little bit more central. Now defaultly it's very much in the corner, and I don't mind it being too in the corner, as you can see. Mine is pretty in the corner here, but I don't like it being all the way in the corner, so I like dragging it a little bit more out, like that. It's kind of almost the same. And that way it's a little bit easier to see my party list rather than being all the way in the corner here. Okay, a little bit over dramatic, but you get the point. I don't really like it being too much in the corner. And then I like having the limit gauge on top of that. That's when you have LB and stuff like that, it will be up there. And so far, this is a pretty clean hotbar. There are some other things we can do, like get rid of this pet UI. We could make this that. Want to make it even smaller and just plop it there. It's fine. Pet UI isn't the most important thing. It's just like when you summon a carbuncle or your fairy on Scholar, you can kind of just put it wherever you want. The most important pet command on the pet hotbar is actually moving the pet, and this isn't something you need to worry about when you're playing Summoner, but it might be something that you need to worry about when you're playing something like Scholar, to move your pet in the middle of the arena. But otherwise, it's not the most useful UI setting, so just put it somewhere where it's not too in your face. I think the last important thing is the focus target bar. I like to have this by the target info as well. So say if you're a healer and you want to still see bosses cast, you can press Shift F to focus target, and then say if you want to heal someone, I only have myself for example, I can still see the boss here. So say if the striking dummy is someone I need to heal and I'm the boss, and you'll see that I'm casting an ability, you'll still see the ability being casted even though you're targeting like your ally to heal them. So that's a pretty nifty option, especially if you're playing healer. Something else that focus target does is put this arrow on top of the person's head that you have focus targeted, if that's an enemy or another player. And something this can be really handy for is if you're doing like PF content or just with your static and you abide by PF rules where it's like R1, R2, H2, H1, you know, yada yada yada, and you have pairs, then something you can do is you can focus target your pair partner, and then basically your pair partner will always have this arrow above their head, so you pretty much won't be able to miss who your pair partner is for certain mechanics that you need to pair up for. But so far, so good, right? So of course we have a lot of these hotbars here. I don't do much with like excess hotbars, but there are some nifty things you can do with excess hotbars that I'm not going to get into because I don't fully understand the intricacies of doing that. But there are some other things that we need to do. Obviously, it's just clean up our UI in general. So scenario guide is a good one. You don't need this enabled if you're caught up with the story. So what I like to do is personally just put it over here off somewhere in the distance. I disable it. Then when a new patch comes out, a new story comes out, I can just enable it. And then I can click it and it will just take me to where the current MSQ is. So that's really handy to actually keep there, but have it disabled when you don't need it. Server info, all this kind of stuff, it's not important to have at all times, but I obviously still like to have it enabled. Minimap, I don't really use the minimap that much in combat. I use mostly waymarks, but you can have the minimap a bit more closer to your hotbar if that's something you want to do as well. I've seen a lot of people do this and it's pretty good, but I personally don't really use the minimap like that, so I'm just going to drag it here. But again, you can put this wherever you want. For me, this is just getting in the way, so I'm going to put it in the corner here. Other things is like main menu and stuff like that, so I just put this all the way in the corner. It's not information that I immediately need to see. It's more for, you know, just hanging around and I want to access my main menu and stuff like that. Inventory grid and guild and all that kind of stuff as well. It's all the same deal. We don't need to immediately see this when we're in combat. This is just stuff we want to put to the side, right? We don't need that information at all times. Duty list as well is another one. We don't need that information at all times, so we can kind of just put it off to the side here. Alliance list though, this is a good one, so it's a bit of a mess over here. I apologize. I live a messy life. It is what it is. What we can do is we can put the alliance list down here below the party list. So when we're doing stuff like 24-player alliance raids, we'll see the other alliances here below our party list. And that's pretty good. So if you're playing a healer and you notice like 2 of the healers are dead in Alliance 2, you could res one of the healers and help out that alliance. And now say you have a UI that you are really happy with, but you want it to be slightly different when you play a DPS or a tank or a healer or a ranged DPS, you know, whatever, right? Then you can click on this cogwheel here, HUD Layout Settings, and you can copy this HUD layout that you've made onto another HUD. So what you want to do is the top one is the HUD layout that you want to copy over, and the bottom one is the HUD layout that you want to copy over onto. So for example, this is my 1 HUD layout, and I want to copy it over to 2. So I'll click execute, and then once I'm at 2, it's the exact same. And I can do this for every single HUD if I want to. I can do it for free. I can do it for 3 to 4. You know, it's pretty nifty. So if that's something you want to do, definitely do check that out if you want your HUD to look a little bit different across all the roles. But yeah, other than that, that's pretty much the UI completely remade. It looks slightly different. I still prefer my one because it's hours of doing this one, but at the same time, this is more or less the same, right? So let's just pretend it's the same. Very cool stuff. A few settings that I also want to go over that might overlap with the previous video about settings and stuff is just some stuff that is going to help you have your UI be less cluttered. So what we want to do is go into character configuration here. We want to go into Hotbar Settings here, and there's a few things here that are really important. So display recast times, I would obviously have these on, because if you don't have these on and you were to use Lightspeed, you know, it doesn't have a recast time. So display that recast time, make it centered. If you make it bottom left, it's down here. If you make it centered, it's in the center. It looks very nice. A few other things that are on by default, display hotbar numbers. You don't need to see that, so just disable that. Obviously, this is up to you, but I don't need to see this. Hide unassigned slots. You definitely want to tick this, because if you don't have it ticked, then you have this kind of stuff, and that's just really annoying. So definitely hide those. It doesn't matter, because if you do want to drag new things onto your hotbar, they do appear anyway, as you can see, so it's whatever. Obviously, another important thing is going to keybinds here and going to hotbar, and just make sure that you are assigning your third hotbar and all your other hotbars just comfortable keybinds that work out for you. Of course, if you're using more than 3 hotbars, then you're going to obviously need to assign more keybinds. I have a nice little hotbar here that is my mount hotbar and my limit break hotbar, so I actually have limit break on a dedicated keybind, which is something that I really like. And while we're talking about having dedicated keybinds for my mount and limit break, this is always going to be the same across every single job. So if I switch to Pictomancer, for instance, then it's going to still remain with my mount roulette and my limit break here. And how you do this is if you go into character configuration here, you go to Hotbar Settings, and you go over to sharing here, make sure your hotbar 1, 2, and 3 are not enabled, and the rest of these can pretty much be enabled depending on, you know, how many hotbars you want to actually have shared. I say, you know, hotbar 1, 2, and 3, but these are your main 3 hotbars that will be dedicated to your job. As for the rest of the hotbars, you can either obviously have more dedicated job hotbars if you want, or you can just have the rest be shared. And the fact that I have hotbar 4 be a shared hotbar means, yes, it doesn't change when I change my jobs. It's shared across every single job, even my crafters. So yeah, that's how you make these dedicated hotbars across all jobs. But yeah, other than that, that's pretty much this video. Just a quick one to go over my UI settings. I did it like at the start of Endwalker, but there's a few more settings that I wanted to add onto that video to kind of update it. So I hope it helps. If it doesn't, leave a mean comment. If it does, leave a nice comment. Anyway, thank you so much for my Patreons. Really appreciate you guys. You can check the links in the description below if you want to check that stuff out. Very cool. And yeah, like, subscribe, and goodbye. I appreciate you. See you later. See you in the next one. Bye-bye. Take it easy. Bye-bye now. Bye-bye.